Good morning, grade 12s. Today's lesson is on homeostasis. And before we even talk about homeostasis, there's some work that we have to revise from grade 10. Now, firstly, you must know that homeostasis, so a very important definition, we learned it with endocrine system, is to maintain a constant internal environment. Now, when we talk about the internal environment, we are talking about the cells. We are talking about the cells. Now, I always draw 3 cells because that is now what surrounds the cells. Now, let's look around the cells. You should remember from grade 10, there's a special fluid called the tissue fluid. And there are certain conditions that have to be controlled in the tissue fluid for homeostasis to be maintained. The first one is the amount of oxygen. So the amount of oxygen in the tissue fluid must be controlled. The amount of water, the amount of glucose, the pH of the cells and the blood. 5, very important, temperature. And 6, the amount of tissue fluid around the cells also have to be controlled. The reason for that is there you have your blood vessels, and if you have water, oxygen, whatever nutrients, the substances first leave the blood vessel, go into the tissue fluid, and then go into the cells. Wastes leave the cells, go into the tissue fluid, and then back into the blood. So, of course, the amount of tissue fluid around the cells is also important, and you learned that in grade 10. Now, we've already done the amount of water, how water is controlled. We've done that by the hormones ADH. We've done glucose, that is by glucose level is controlled by insulin and glucagon. I've also done a video with aldosterone where the salt amount is controlled. Tissue fluid you don't need to. You've done it in grade 10, so you don't need to do it. The only ones you need to do is oxygen, pH, and temperature. So I'm going to go now move to the big section, and that is thermoregulation. So thermoregulation is controlling the amount of temperature, controlling an organism's temperature. And what you need to know is we humans, we are homeothermic. We are homeothermic. Our body temperature remains constant. So we have a constant body temperature. And if you remember from grade 11 work, it is cellular respiration. The heat energy produced from cellular respiration, that heat goes into the blood, and the blood carries the heat throughout the body. That is why your body temperature is 37. But why must your body temperature be 37 degrees? Because your enzymes, that is the optimum temperature for your enzymes to function. Anything above, your enzymes will denature, and anything below, your enzymes will be inactive. That's grade 10 work. So at 39 degrees, your enzymes start to denature. That's when you have a very serious fever and you become delirious and you feel lethargic, malaise, you can't do anything. And then when the fever is gone, your enzymes form again and you function properly. Now, we already know that the largest organ in your body is the skin, and the skin plays a role in thermoregulation. Now, you do not have to know the structure of the skin, but I'd like to teach you the structure of the skin, especially for those of you that are going to do BSc. You have 3 layers of your skin. This is the first, the epidermis, the second is the dermis, and the third is made up of your fat layers. This here is your fat cells. And 3 or more fat cells makes up adipose tissue. And you should know your adipose tissue is there for insulation, shock absorbing, and protection. Now the epidermis is made up of the outer layer, is conified. Conified means very hard. So these cells, the outer layer of this layer is very, very hard and covered with keratin. And the reason for this layer to be very hard is to protect all the underlying tissue. Then you get another layer called the non-granular layer, which you cannot see here. And from its name, non-granular, it has no granules. Then you have the granular layer, which of course from its name, it has granules. And we're more interested in the malpighian layer. Malpighian layer has the pigment melanin. And melanin is the pigment in our skin. The more melanin you have, the darker you are. The less melanin you have, the lighter you are. And melanin absorbs harmful UV rays. So that is the epidermis. The dermis, you guys remember from grade 10, that it's made up of areolar connective tissue. You also have blood vessels and lymph vessels. The blood vessels are very important. You will learn are very important now in thermoregulation. You also get sebaceous glands. These are the sebaceous glands here. Sebaceous glands are always attached to the hair follicle. And the sebaceous glands secrete sebum. And sebum is an oily substance. And the oily substance makes our skin nice and flexible. Then you also have your sweat glands. There's your sweat glands. It's convoluted. Convoluted means it's folded. There's a sweat duct, and on the skin, your sweat pore appears. And then you have your hair follicles with your erector muscles, your hair follicles, and attached to the hair follicle. So this is the hair follicle, this is the root, the follicle, and the shaft. This is the erector muscle. That's the muscle that makes the hair stand on a cold day and lie flat on a hot day. And then you have your skin receptors. You don't have to know the names. You have hot and cold receptors, pain receptors, touch receptors, and pressure receptors. And then you have your layer of adipose tissue. And this is your adipose tissue for insulation protection. Now that we're talking about thermoregulation, that fat layer or adipose tissue is for insulation. Insulation means to keep your heat in. Now, these are the 3 different layers of the skin. So if you have like a 3rd degree burn, that's when all 3 layers of your skin is burned. 1st degree burn, only the epidermis. 2nd degree burn, epidermis and dermis. 3rd degree burn is when all 3 layers are burnt. You don't have to know the structure of the skin. I'd like to still teach you what's in my notes. Now, very important, you need to know very important principles of thermodynamics. And the important principles of thermodynamics, let me just clean this quickly for you. If you need to take pictures of this, you just freeze the screen, press pause, take a picture, and make sure you write it into your textbooks or workbooks. Make note of this. That was the introduction to homeostasis. Now, one of the laws of thermodynamics is heat is energy. So energy cannot be lost but merely transferred from one body to another. And how it works is if something is hot, let's say if a body is 39 degrees and there's another area that's 25 degrees, heat is always lost from the hot body to the cooler body or to the cooler place. Now, let me draw us. I'm not very good at drawing people. Our body temperature is 37 degrees. Room temperature is 25 degrees. Law of thermodynamics is we are 37 degrees, we are hot, and we will always lose heat to the cooler area, which is the environment, which is room temperature. And we always lose heat by radiation. And radiation is when heat is lost in the form of rays. Now, I'm sure you must have watched these movies where people, or watched these games like Metal Gear, and people use these goggles that pick up infrared. And the infrared is the radiation given off by your body. And only a living organism will give off that radiation. Because you are 37 degrees, you are hot, you lose your heat energy to a cooler body. If, for example, you're in your room and you have an aircon and it's cold like today, one of the coldest days, and you have your aircon up to 38 degrees. Your room is nice and warm, and there you are. So the aircon heat, you will now gain this heat because you are cooler, you will gain this heat from the aircon. So that is radiation. You always lose heat in the form of radiation. So let's go back to our notes. Now, for your exams, there are two important things that you have to know. Now, they can ask you on a hot day. They can also ask you if you're exercising, because you also get very hot, or a fever, or it's also known as hyperthermia. Hyperthermia is when your temperature is very high. Now, you always start off with your body temperature is normal temperature. And when you get too hot, the heat receptors in the skin are stimulated. The heat receptors convert the stimulus into a nerve impulse, and that impulse goes to the hypothalamus. And if you remember your work from the brain, the function of the hypothalamus, B state, one of the B's is body temperature. Now, the hypothalamus will first send a message to the blood vessels. And when you're answering this in the exams, you will always talk about the blood vessels first. Now, the blood vessels become wider. Now, if I draw the skin, and if I draw the blood vessels, so this is the skin, this is the outside. Outside is 25 degrees, and your body temperature is 37 degrees. If the blood flows to the surface of the skin, the heat from the blood flows to the surface, and the heat can be lost by radiation. So the blood vessels, on a hot day, the blood vessels become wider. Another word for that is dilate. This process is called vasodilation. You must have that in your answer. And then you must say, more blood flows to the surface of the skin. More blood with heat flows to the surface of the skin. More heat is lost by radiation. Now, because more blood is flowing to the skin, this blood vessels will stimulate the sweat glands and cause it to start functioning more. That's why you always talk about the blood first and then the sweat glands. So because more blood is flowing to the skin, the sweat glands will produce more sweat. More sweat evaporates from the skin, more heat is lost. And then I want you to write down for me, more cooling of the body. Because by more sweat evaporating, when that sweat evaporates, the sweat takes the heat with it and then cools the body and brings the body back to normal. So you started off with normal and you're ending off with normal. So that is now on a hot day. This is what happens on a hot day, exercise, fever, or hypothermia. The next one is on a cold day. Cold day, you're freezing, or it's also known as hypothermia. Then again, your body temperature is normal, and then you get very cold. You may be in an environment where it gets very cold or the environmental temperature drops. Then the cold receptors in the skin are stimulated. The cold receptors convert the stimulus into a nerve impulse and sends this impulse to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus will then send messages to the blood vessels. And the blood vessels will become narrower. Blood vessels constrict, and you must say this is vasoconstriction. And what will happen is less blood now is flowing to the surface of the skin. If less blood is flowing to the surface of the skin, less heat is lost by radiation. And if there's less blood flowing in the surface into the skin, the sweat glands will produce less sweat. There will be less evaporation of sweat, less cooling of the body, more heat is conserved. Add this to your notes, please. And you conserve as much heat, and then this will bring your body temperature back to normal. This point I also want to teach you that sometimes you can start shivering. Now, when you shiver, you are producing a lot of thyroxine. And you should know that thyroxine increases cellular respiration. And if it increases cellular respiration, will produce more heat energy. And that's how you get warm, by shivering. And then there's your two pictures. I'd like to still teach you about the hair, even though it's not in your syllabus. So if I draw the hair on a cold day, so there's your hair. The hair stands up. And the reason why the hair stands up is because the erector muscle contracts and causes the hair to stand up. And the hair traps a layer of air, and air is a good insulator. meaning it will slow down the loss of heat by radiation. On a hot day, you want the hair to lie flat, no air is trapped, and more heat is lost by radiation. So that was homeostasis, and more specifically, that was thermoregulation. And you must know what happens in hypothermia, which is a fever, exercise, or a hot day, and hypothermia on a very cold day or you're freezing. You must know. They can use any conditions. This essay is also what I spoke to you about when we did adrenaline. So when you have the effects of adrenaline, the first thing that happens is you first will be cold. And then after the effects of adrenaline have worn out, then you feel hot. So they ask the role of the hypothalamus and the adrenal glands. So they basically want to know, firstly, what happens on a cold day, and then on a hot day. And I know this was one of the 2012 papers, if you want to go look at the memo. So that was thermoregulation. Thank you.